Hello, guys, and welcome to Bio Brigade. I am Sohad, and this is Namita. Welcome to our very first video of our new playlist, Study Abroad Interactions.
So we came up with this idea in this lockdown that there are a lot of students in India who wants to pursue PhD or go for their graduation out of India. So we came up with these videos in our playlist called Study Abroad Interactions and Sessions. So if you like the content, please like it, follow and subscribe to our channel. And in case you want to know where do you want to study and what are the countries you are interested in and you want us to interview someone from that country, just let us know in the comment section. The first video that the first person we have interviewed is Swapnali Day. She is from Nagpur, and let's get started with the video. So hello guys, today I am Namita, that is Sohad, and today we are going to interview Swapnali Day. She is a cancer biologist and she has done her BTech and MTech, and she has applied for PhD positions, and congratulations Swapnali that you have got 2 positions in the US. So I'd like to introduce you to Swapnali. She did her BTech from Nagpur University and MTech from Amity University, Mumbai, and her field of interest is cancer biology. So let's give it up for Swapnali.
Thank you so much for your sweet introduction. So hi, I'm Swapnali, and I think you already introduced me, so I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, so just for
Sohad.
to get a quick background of yours, can you please tell us about where are you from and your journey from your high school and your grad school? How has it been, and what were the specificities that you enjoyed or you didn't like about it?
Okay, yeah, that's a nice question. Background a bit about me. I am from Nagpur and basically I'm from Calcutta, but like for the past decade, I'm residing in Nagpur itself. And so basically, I've done my high school through graduation here itself. So it's an amazing journey. Like now that you say you call it a journey, it's have been so much of ups and downs. And so biology has been my subject of interest like since forever, since my childhood. It has piqued my interest. So in grade 12th, I was introduced to the to the two chapters of Introduction to Biotechnology and its applications. And my interest for this field increased even more when I started reading novels by Robin Cook. And each one of his book is basically a medical thriller. So each one of the book which I read made me aware of the socio-ethical problems that exist in our society and how this technology can be a boon and a bane. So that's when I decided that I would pursue my bachelor's in biotechnology. So during my undergrad, I was introduced to so many new subjects of cell biology, immunology, molecular biology. That basically opened up a Pandora box for me of questions because biotechnology is vast. So that's when I thought that I would go ahead with masters because just doing bachelor's would not suffice my quench for this subject. So during my masters, I had to shift to. It was not easy basically because I had to shift from my home and settle in a new place with new people, new teachers, everything new. But now that I look back upon it, every up and down, each and every moment has made me what I am today, and I'm very thankful to this wonderful journey that I have. So yeah.
Okay, so since you have basically started in India till your masters, so there's this question that a lot of us usually have, especially the ones who want to pursue research but are in the 11th, 9th and 10th. So did you have maths as your subject in your 11th and 12th, or did you just have biology?
Yes, I did take maths during my 11th and 12th, and I mean, I know a lot of like the people who are lovers of biology would go against maths, but I would actually recommend going for maths, because like when you are going in masters and also in bachelors, there are few subjects like biostatistics, and some few subjects are there where you do require the application of maths. So like each of the instrumentation, to understand the basics, you need to have a basic knowledge of your 11th 12th maths. So to anyone who is having doubt, I would definitely say that no matter how hard it is, please do go for maths in 11th and 12th.
So before we get on to the interview part and start asking you all the academic questions, we would like to ask you, how is the lockdown period going for you?
Okay, well, this lockdown, actually initially it was a bit mentally exhausting, but I had a lot of fun in this lockdown, because I got associated with SciComm India team. So SciComm India, so it's basically an online platform. They mainly focus on astronomy, but they started this online talk show, like which you guys are basically doing now. So I was the online talk show host there. So, and I used to host many principals of different schools and colleges, and even I got the opportunity to have an interview with the director of CSI and NISCARE. So that was an amazing journey I had. And now I'm actually working part-time as a subject specialist in biology. So, and also I'm part-time working freelancing. So, and I'm also learning some new languages.
Wow, that's so much compared to we both. We are doing nothing except attending classes and stuff.
So you guys have college. I'm done with my college. So you guys are basically studying.
So let's start with the academic questions we have for you. So now that we know about your research and your interest in cancer, we would like to ask you, if a person from our country, India, wants to apply to universities out of India, what should be the first approach to do so?
Okay, so if you're talking about abroad, I specifically would talk about US, because that's where I had applied. So there are 4 points I would say. So the first and foremost thing is giving your 2 exams, that is the GRE exam, that is Graduate Record Examination, and your TOEFL or the IELTS, that is the English Language Exam. So those two are very important, and on the basis of the marks which you get, you need to select your universities. So when you're after that comes the application process. That is the second point I'm coming to. So you need to focus on your application. So in application, the most important thing is your statement of purpose, or the SOP. So that is basically how you are selling yourself to the university. That's the main thing. And okay, and the third thing is your letter of recommendation, or the LOR. I would recommend, please be very careful when you're choosing the teacher from whom you want your letter of recommendation. I mean, one would definitely be the guide under whom you're working or doing your project, and other two teachers, like usually the college requires 3 or 4 letter of recommendations. So please do choose the other teachers apart from your guide carefully, because you often teachers, I've seen in my friends cases, that they have to harp the teachers again and again that please fill up the form, the deadline is approaching. So so that's one thing you need to keep in mind. And the last one is the transcripts. So the transcripts are usually issued by the like your own college itself, for maybe some amount of money, I guess. So usually when you are filling the online application form, you have to upload a scan copy of your transcript. But in some cases, they do require that you have to send the hard copy of your transcript directly from your college. So likewise, be prepared for that. And one more thing which about the transcript is that in India, we have our CGPA out of 10. But in US, I think in some other countries, they have it different, on a scale of 4 maybe. So in US, it is on a scale of 4. So in some colleges, they do want that you give them or you upload a score which is in their, convert the score in their So that's when you have to take the help of some online websites, like there is one which I know, it is World Education Service, or WES. So there you have to upload your credentials and your information, and they will guide you likewise. So that's the 4 important thing. I would just summarize it. And giving your exam, GRE and TOEFL, your application, which includes your statement of purpose and letter of recommendation, and the last thing is your transcripts. So those are very important.
All right, just small doubts regarding your 3 points. So, like from what
Yeah.
I have seen, there are apparently 2 types of GRE tests: the general test and the subject test. So, which test do you recommend that usually people should take for PhD admissions in USA?
Okay, see, the subject biology test or the subject test, I have seen it very rarely that people give. Mainly, people are giving like the general GRE itself. And also, one more thing to be noted is that a lot of the colleges are actually like considering your application without the GRE as well, because a lot of the colleges have come to realize over the time that GRE is not a factor which can determine your application or your entire profile. So there are a lot of colleges, even if you're not giving your GRE, but you're appearing for your English exam, like TOEFL or IELTS, they are accepting your profile or your application. So yeah, and the main thing, your question, is I don't think subject GRE is required. You can very well go with the normal GRE.
So you said about LORs that you should ask the professors whom you don't have to harp a lot. So do you think that the same professor for like 3 to 4 LORs for separate universities can get a bit irritating on the professor's part as well? Like me emailing him.
Yeah, definitely. It depends. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that
Yeah, definitely.
the professor every second day or every third day that, sir, I also applied for XYZ, I also applied for XYZ college. So don't you think the professor will get a bit irritated at, oh my god, how many colleges are going to apply and how many colleges do I have to submit your recommendation letter?
Yes, that is definitely true. So the thing is, that's why I said that you have to be really very careful when you're choosing your professor. And before you should just talk to your professor that would you be able to do it, because I'll be applying to so and so universities, so many universities. So maybe when I apply, and the thing is, like as soon as you apply, they would get an email immediately. So you can do it likewise, that you can apply in such a span that they don't get irritated, and they also have a certain amount of time. So but yeah, sometimes they do get irritated because you would be harping for 3, 4, 5 colleges. You're just telling them again and again, sir, please do it, sir, please do it. So the main thing is understanding, nothing else, trust me, because I had one professor from Amity. He was so good. I just had to tell him, sir, did you get the email? And he's like, yeah, I've already finished and uploaded it. So that's very rare. Trust me.
So according to you, like what should be the ideal gap that one should take between 2 applications, like applying in 2 universities? A rough.
Okay. Okay, I won't say gap. So you can just so some colleges have that after you have like completed your application and paid the certain amount of application fee, only after that they will send the letter, send the link to your professor for sending their letter of recommendation. And some colleges send it as soon as you have applied, as soon as you have written their email ID. So it depends from college to college. So you can, so likewise you can see and manage it, that, and also it depends on how many colleges you are applying to. So I don't think, and also you have to keep in mind the deadlines.
And so like about the monetary part, because a lot of people have to keep the financial part in their mind as well. So like approximately roughly what is the application fee of each university?
Okay, so honestly speaking, it varies from $20 to $100. That's the range. So some colleges may have 20, 25, maybe 30, and some which are like even actually the Ivy League colleges and the high ranking colleges do have application fee on the higher end, like 100 or $90. So it varies over a huge range. We don't have any control of that. But also one thing, there are few colleges you have to find who have like they excuse the application fee. There's the application fee waiver, so you have to see for that. Like University of Nebraska, they do not have any like application fee, so that's one good thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so would you like to tell us about the universities you got into? Like, just for the people to know that you got into universities?
Yeah, so basically I got mainly in University of Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha, and but I also got for Lincoln as well. So there are two campuses, one in Omaha and one in Lincoln. So I got for both. However, and I got for spring, but there but the research which I got was not in alliance with what I want to pursue, so I did not go for it in this spring. So I'm actually waiting for them to respond for fall 21. So basically I am wholly and solely depending on University of Nebraska and also University of Texas. Both I'm waiting for them.
All right. So now let's talk about the CV. Would you like to tell us about what all things in the CV matters just to make our application look a little good and for the committee members to think that this person should be selected? So would you like to highlight some of the points in the CV which are mandatory sort of?
Okay, so the main thing is know your CV. That's the main thing, because a lot of people tend to write a lot of things in the CV just for the sake and so that it looks good and people think that it looks good. But professors do give attention to your CV and make it realistic. So if you don't know anything and still you're writing about it, and if they ask during the interview and you're not able to answer it, then they will immediately understand that you have been making it flowery, or you're falsifying some statements. So, and also one thing is that they look at the overall profile basically. So the main thing which they look is your experiences, your internships, and the projects which you have done, and probably the publications if you're having. And even if you don't have any publications, that is completely fine. Some universities do consider that as well. And the main thing is, how is your co-curricular activity? That is also very important. So the colleges outside of like in US and all, they do focus on your extracurricular activity as well, that apart from studies, how well-rounded person you are. So the more you are good in overall and in your extracurricular activities as well, so that is a plus point definitely.
All right. So now Sohad is going to ask something, I guess.
Yeah, so actually now I wanted to understand like there are universities all around that have very good stipends. There are universities that don't have stipends. So what is the stipend wala scene in US universities?
Okay, so see, in US, if you're talking specifically for PhD students, so every PhD student do get a specific amount of stipend, and it ranges from $25,000 to $37,000 per year, depending on the college you get. And they also cover, like there are many colleges which cover for your medical expenses, like your insurance and everything. And they also cover for your like suppose you're going on some different conferences, so they also cover up for your travel charges as well. So for PhD, everything is covered basically, except obviously they give you the stipend, so that covers for your living expenses as well. So that's the thing with the PhD students.
So usually, is the stipend enough to like live a decent life? Like, not a luxurious one, of course, a decent lifestyle.
Okay, well, I wouldn't know if I'm the right person to answer this question because I still have not gone there. But I think they do provide the stipend depending upon the city or the or the campus where you are, where the college is. Because in places like New York and maybe the outskirts of New York, there the colleges do have a stipend of more than 30,000, 37,000. $1,000 per year. So that is, I am assuming for a decent life, it is okay. But and it depends from basically from state to state. So I am not able to give a perfect answer for that.
All right. So can you tell us something about the scholarships for international students? Like this is the stipend part. Like there must be some scholarships and fellowships as well. So,
Yeah, so see, different colleges do have their own scholarships and fellowships available. So you have to basically go to their website and check. And also, if there are no scholarships or something available or written on the website, you can anytime contact or email the graduate school and ask them for if there are any available scholarships for on their behalf. Apart from that, there are many scholarships and fellowships like the Rhodes Scholar, then the Fuller Bright Scholarship, then the McNair Scholarship. Then also, like the Indian government also has some. I am not exactly aware of it, but they have the collaboration with some colleges and they do provide you some scholarship depending on certain criteria. Also, some foundations like the Aga Khan Foundation and all, they also do provide scholarships. So it depends from different communities, I am assuming. So these are some few of the scholarships, but a lot of the scholarship depends on your college as well. So do keep checking with your colleges. That's really important.
All right. So next question that I'm going to ask is, as we know that you were very interested in biology from your high school, but seems like PhD is a big commitment and sometimes people are not really happy doing PhD or they're scared of doing PhD. What are your opinions and views about doing a PhD, or how did you made up your mind that you want to pursue PhD? Because it's a long time commitment, you know.
Yes, definitely, exactly. Well, for me personally, if you're asking about me, for me, I am always, like you mentioned, like PhD had, like biology, I was always interested in it. And for me, somehow I never can connect with the core 9 to 5 job of a industry. So, and I know that working in a lab is where I get the kick and where I am happy genuinely. And yeah, even though it is a long term commitment, but like if you know from your heart that you can pursue your career further in core research and in the academics, then you can definitely go ahead for the PhD. But for people who just want a doctor prefix in front of their name, that is definitely not worth it.
okay, so
Okay, so
yeah, sure. So, like there are a lot of people who have this dilemma of whether I should do the PhD from India or whether I should do from abroad, and like I personally have had a lot of discussions wherein people have tried to convince me to look for PhD options in India as well. But so, what are your views on it? Like, did you apply for PhD in India as well, or you just were focused to go to US?
No, I actually did not focus in India. Well, personally, I don't know. I feel that in other countries there are much more broader. We have much more broader scope and opportunities and area of research as compared to India. And in India, sometimes I feel it is much more focused on your marks and written examinations rather than your overall skills. So that's why I personally don't did not apply in India. So I would definitely go for abroad.
So I guess these were some of the important questions that we and all the people who are going to apply for PhD or grad school in the US might be answering, wants them to get answered. So in the end, I would like to ask you on my part that how do you cope up with the things when you just feel like giving up?
Okay. Okay, there are two things about that. The first thing is, um, when I like mentally, if I'm exhausted and I'm feeling like I cannot do it, and I should then at one time when I can, like, literally my body is also giving up, at that point I would definitely give some rest to my mind, that so that I can start afresh again tomorrow. But if, like, the mind is just after some time, it's just saying that I cannot do, just simply give up. It's like my personal opinion. I just don't believe in giving up, because I feel that the moment I give up is the moment I have lost my own battle in whatever I'm doing. Like, the whole purpose is lost. That's what I feel. So there is this Buddhist philosopher, Daisaku Ikeda. So I do follow whatever he says, like his guidance. So he has said one thing, that the moment you give up is the moment you're defeated against your own weaknesses. So, and when you overcome all your this darkness and your weaknesses, is the moment you are victorious in your life against your own weakness, and you stand stronger. So that is something I follow in my life, and that's something I preach everyone, that don't give up ever.
Okay, so I guess for the farewell question, is there any quick suggestion that you would like to give to all the PhD aspirants? Like a couple of suggestions that you would like to give, like to avoid the last minute hurdles, or the the tension of, oh my god, I have to apply, oh my god, will I get it through, will I be able to get through, what if I lose a year? Like, a lot of people are worried that what if they don't get selected this year, they'll have to wait for another year. So what are your suggestions in that?
Okay. So the first thing is, when you're talking about the application process, when you're in your masters, just start preparing from then itself. Like, when you just entering your masters in your first year, please start preparing from that, because all these application processes take 1 year completely. Like, you applying for your preparing for your GRE and TOEFL exams, the entire application process, shortlisting, making your statement of purpose, everything takes 1 year. So, like, you're applying now in August of 2020 for next year of 2021. So that's a complete 1 year. So I would definitely say, prepare in advance, be prepared. And in case you're scared that you would not be able to get in 1 year and your year would be lost, please always do have a backup plan. I'm not saying that you have to get a job itself. You can do some part-time work as well. Not only just have to get into job directly after your masters. It's my personal opinion. A lot of people may think it is an unpopular opinion, basically, but I feel you also need some time off from your studies and explore what you want to do. So maybe during that time you can actually do what you want to do, and then you can apply further ahead in case you feel that you have lost a year. So yeah, that's what I would definitely say.
So thank you so much, Swapnali. It was really fun to have you with us, and thank you for the information that you have shared with all of us. I would like to tell all the people who are going to see this video that Swapnali has her own Instagram account named as Caffeinated Scientist, where she uploads posts and a journey over these many years. So you can go and follow her over there. We'll mention the details in the description box. Thanks, Swapnali.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Swapnali. It was an amazing experience to interact with you. I hope all the questions that people have in their mind about studying in America were answered today. And we are going to drop your details in the description box about your Instagram. And if people, guys, you want to follow her journey, you could just check it out in the description box.
Thank you so much, Swapnali. We wish you the best of luck for your future endeavors. And guys, if you like the video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel Bio Brigade. It really means a lot to us. And if there's any suggestions or any feedbacks for us, don't forget to mention in the comments below. Thank you so much.